Hello! Today I am breaking with tradition, and rather than reviewing a book, I am reviewing a series, or at least a series as we have it so far. As you may have noticed from the thumbnail, it is The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Now, all systems read, this book that I had just held up, came out in 2017. It was an instant sensation. It was on the ticks and the toxins and the Zs and the Xs and the Instas and all the rest of them, and everyone was raving about how it was a must-read and how amazing it was. Which convinced me with little effort that I was going to loathe it, because most of these internet sensations are not for me. Also, The Murderbot Diaries sounded very young adult, and I'm currently going through, I certainly was in 2017, but I still am going through a phase where I'm reducing my young adult quota because, again, it just doesn't seem to be the reading sphere I'm into at the moment. Now, a while back, I reviewed this book, All Systems Read, on its own. I came across it on the audiobook list for my library, and I needed an audiobook, so I listened to it. It was narrated by Nicholas Free. I was instantly hooked. I was as hooked and as enthusiastic as all the ticky-tocky sensations claimed I would be. They were right. I was wrong. It happens quite often. I was under the impression, a few misconceptions about this. First of all, I thought that Martha Wells was a young author. I thought these were her first books. She's not. She's actually quite an experienced author, and she's done quite a lot before this, not that I'd read any of it or heard of it. So, with the Murderbot Diaries, there are apparently 8 in the series, of which 7 are out. The 8th is projected for May 2026, Platform Decay it will be called. I will be reading it, but I've read 1 to 7 now, and I'm going to read them as a whole, review them as a whole. Having reviewed the first one, they are short, thin books, and they feel very much like they are chapters in one ongoing story. They don't really read to me like individual books, and they do read as a series, and I'm sure that one day, given their girth, they will come out in a single volume, at which point I will probably purchase all 8 as a single volume, and then I may reread it with my eyes instead of my ears. So, from the first one, like I said, All Systems Read, it was published in 2017. I heard it for the first time this year. We met our protagonist. You've got a great, exciting start, straight into the action. And you've got a very decent introduction to the whole world building that Martha Wells does in this series of the Corporation Rim, Preservation Alliance, and you've got this wonderful introduction to our main protagonist, Sec Unit, who calls himself privately Murderbot. This unit is hired out by the corporation who owns it, I think it was Greycris, to various missions. They hire out the tents, the recyclers, the shuttles. They hire out whole packages to individuals who are trying to explore various planets. And the security units come with them, and occasionally fighting units and comfort bots and a whole heap of other things. You've got this marvelously rich world, which is revealed to you very subtly with no info dumps. I don't think this series had a single info dump, really. It's like, wow, I didn't even know anyone could write like that anymore. But the complexity of this futuristic scenario galaxy is sufficiently rooted in modern world 2020s that the explanations don't need over explaining. They fall into our understanding of the corporate materialistic society quite well. We can envisage this future where the corporation ring is entirely ruled by corporations. We can envisage a future in which a company like Greycris is going to kill or not kill people based on the legalities and the money it will cost them. It's all really good. And a narrator can make or break a book. The narrator in the book I'm currently listening to is breaking it into small pieces like a glass dropped on the floor, for example. In this one, Nicholas Free makes this series and this character more than it probably could be on its own. Now, I didn't read it with my eyes. first time, so I'm not sure, but I can't imagine how anyone could narrate it better than Nicholas Free. It's like, he has now achieved narrator status where I will probably borrow a book simply because he's narrating it, but for these, the voice of Nicholas Free will forever be Murderbot in my head, even if I read them. It's only when I picked up this book and glanced through to check a couple of details for this review that I realised just how dry the delivery is, how fascinating the non-binary character of Murderbot really is, but their dry, common sense way of seeing the world is actually very funny, but is very humorous, but not in a funny way. You're not often going to laugh at things that Murderbot says, but you are going to feel that lightening of spirit that you get from something where the irony or the humour or the satire just piques your interest. That this is a constant throughout all the books. So well done, Martha Wells. Anyway, the next one in the series is Artificial Condition, and All Systems Red came out in 2017, Artificial Condition came out in 2018, but it was not the only one that came out in 2018. 3 books came out in 2018. Don't know how she did it. Someone else must have been doing the laundry, but they all work well. In Artificial Condition, I guess this is a spoiler. How can something be a spoiler if there's Netflix series or whatever, Prime series or whatever they are? Everyone knows about it. Okay. If you do think it's going to be spoilery, I'm not going to worry about it. Artificial Condition, like all of this series, takes up the story from where the last one finished it. At the end of All Systems Red, Murderbot has been purchased by the Preservation Alliance, who he was protecting, going to great lengths to protect on the face of the planet. After they discovered that he'd hacked his governor module and was essentially a free agent, there was a lot of story development, narration stuff. It was some great writing. But because he has hacked his governor module, the second the corporation that owns him finds that out, he will essentially be taken apart. The organic parts of him will be killed, I think. The non-organic may or may not be recycled, but Sec Unit as an individual will no longer exist because no Sec Units or other units that combine the electronics and the organics, none of them are allowed to be free operators. They have to have a governing module. So rather than having him go back to the corporation that owns him and have him destroyed, Preservation Unit have purchased his contract. Dr. Mensa, as his prime protector, now owns him and they're going to take him back to Preservation, but Preservation was founded on the notion of no slavery, which puts them against the corporations. And so at the end of All Systems Red, Sec Unit is told he can go wherever he likes and do whatever he likes. So what he does is basically walk away from his human friends and start hitchhiking around the galaxy on automated, bot-driven ships. Now, the purpose of this is to go back to an event in his history that was diagnostic to who he is now. I should stop saying he. It's a they, them. This is a genderless character. And I'm going to tell you, if you want me to believe in a genderless character, which I totally did through all of these books, I never connected Murderbot with a gender until I saw that series. If you get Alexander Skarsgård to play an actor, the chances of me not believing it's a male character are not high. That was a poor decision. Okay, it was a great decision. Alexander Skarsgård did a wonderful job with that character. Whatever. Murderbot is a they, them. Got it. They, them, had an event prior to them hacking their governor module where a whole heap of humans were apparently murdered on this particular mining moon station. They want to go and find out what happened for real because they don't believe the details that have been leaked to the press and they have no memory. So they want to go back. But in order to do that, they have to hitchhike with various automated drones to get to the right area. And that's where we meet Art. Art's actual name is Perihelion, and it is a bot running a ship for university. But right from the get-go, it's very, very clear that this is not a normal, almost mindless bot that can only speak in bot speak. This is an artificial intelligence in its own right, with as much or more autonomy that Murderbot does. And art gets called art because Murderbot thinks of them as asshole something transport. And they become another major character throughout the series. Now, eventually, with Art's help, Sec Unit writes a whole heap of programs and subroutines to make them appear more human. Like to twitch, to move, to touch the hair. All the things that bots don't actually do, but with subroutines written, he can do them, they can do them, and appear more human. And this is the book. The second book is where they also start representing themselves as an artificial human in public, and they hire themselves out as a security consultant to a small group in order to get down to the moon. I will say that in Artificial Condition, I was a little bit disappointed by how much of our answer we didn't get for what actually happened on that moon. But I think the end result is a lot of bad stuff did happen, but what actually Murderbot did, I don't remember that as being terribly satisfying as a conclusion. Anyhow, we then move on to the third book, Rogue Protocol, also came out in 2018. Now, in Rogue Protocol, Murderbot discovers that his human, or their human, Dr. Mensa, is probably being held captive by the Grey Chris Corporation, which originally owned them, and bad stuff is happening. Grey Chris want information, also partly about Murderbot himself, but other things as well, and Murderbot goes off to help Dr. Mensa. This continues well. I didn't love that book as much as I had loved every single word I'd listened to prior. It seemed a bit complicated, but it was good in its own way. Now, from there we go on to Exit Strategy. Exit Strategy, I'm pretty sure, is the conclusion of that story, and I've got to admit, while I remember the whole thing as one elongated story with many chapters, remembering the books separately is already starting to become quite difficult, as often is the case with a continual series that has been designed as an ongoing story. Now, at the end of Exit Strategy, also published in 2018, we have got the Preservation Alliance humans back on preservation, and Sec Unit goes with them. Now, with our next two books, A Network Effect and Fugitive Telemetry, and there's something weird and timey-wimey happening with them. Number 5 could be Network Effect, and number 6 could be Fugitive Telemetry. Network Effect was written in 2020, or published in 2020, and Fugitive Telemetry in 2021. However, in terms of the sequence of stories in this series, Fugitive Telemetry is definitely the first. In this one, back on preservation, a body is discovered on the preservation station. So if preservation is a planet, there's a station, all the ships come to the station, unload good, people go up to the station, and then onward to the stars. Pretty normal scenario in a lot of science fiction, modern and classic. On that station, a body is discovered, and Sec Unit has little faith or belief in the ability of the actual security team to discover what happened. Murderbot has been at loggerheads with the security team ever since they arrived with Dr. Mensa, because security keep wanting him to identify himself as a security unit. Dr. Mensa and Sec Unit's lawyer insist that that's not fair and equitable. It comes down to the whole image that the public has about Murderbots being, well, Murderbots. This particular story was really interesting because you got a much larger cast of characters than you'd had before. You got Sec Unit interacting with more. You had more conversational pieces. You had more moving parts with lots of people and lots of events happening. And I really liked that one. That was an instant 5 stars for me. Whether it's number 5 or number 6, I don't know. I read it in the right order. So the puzzle is eventually solved in that it had to do with smuggling people off a mining planet owned by one of the corporation giants. The corporation giants kind of enslave humans. They give them contracts to work on isolated mining areas or dangerous conditions, knowing that they won't survive them. And while the contract may appear good at first sight for a lot of money, most don't survive it, and most never come to collect their money, and it's all horrible. Corporations are horrible, is the end message of the Murderbot Diaries. I'm not going to say too much more about this. This is essentially a murder mystery in which our Sec Unit, Murderbot, is the prime mover in it. And it's really interesting because their ability to talk directly to other bots, whether it's a service bot in a hostelry or whether it's the other drone run shuttles. Great book. And it moves us on to Network Effect, which some internet things, including Wikipedia in front of me, claims actually the number 5. But sequentially, in terms of the story, even though it was written first, it's actually the number 6. Because in number 6, after having worked so well with the security team on Fugitive Telemetry, Dr. Mensah insists that Sec Unit be part of the security team that goes on this trip to explore something that I've now forgotten. Dr. Mensah insists on this because her oldest daughter Amina is on that and she wants SecBot there. The exploration trip doesn't end well. They end up being kidnapped in space by these weird, possibly aliens. They look alien-esque. They speak a language no one has heard of. And they grab Amina and Sec Unit and take them through a wormhole. The rest of the ship follows after. Great story. This is classic swashbuckling science fiction-y stuff and thoroughly enjoyable. And what it does is it takes us through to the next story, in that we discover that they source from a planet. On this planet, alien technology has been found, and alien technology and alien artifacts in this galaxy are rigidly controlled because many of them are dangerous in strange ways. And this brings us forward to book number 7, System Collapse. System collapse happens on the planet, which they encountered first in Fugitive Telemetry. No, in Network Effect, sorry. Now, Network Effect, you had... Oh, yes. One more thing about Network Effect. Eventually, when Amina and Sec Unit come through the wormhole to this planet, they find that Art, Murderbot's old friend from a previous novel, has been incapacitated and basically locked into its own system. It engineered the aliens kidnapping Murderbot in order to bring it there so that it could save Art and its humans, which are in danger, some on the ship, some on the station, some on the planet, all over the place. And Murderbot does that. Now, while Network Effect is a wonderful book in itself, the ending is gory. Murderbot is being captured by an agribot, which I imagine something like a huge spider crab thing. So maybe not for arachnophobes, this one. And it has been virtually destroyed. It's brought back, as it so often is, but in System Collapse, the 7th book, the last that is available for reading right now, which was published in 2023, so some time after Network Effect, we have got Murderbot and Art are both on the planet, both their sets of humans and the planet, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to save the colonists. This planet was out of circulation, nobody knew about it for a while, and the alien artifacts make it in a dodgy sort of position. The university that Art, or perihelion, represents wants to study it, Preservation Alliance that Dr. Mensa's team, though Dr. Mensa isn't there, wants to... Their goal is to learn more about it, but to save the colonists, because the other player is the large corporation Barish Estranza, and what they want is they want the planet for whatever resources, but they want the colonists too. They want to convince the colonists that it's in their best interest to sign one of those horrible contracts that we met in a previous book. So the team of humans are desperately trying to convince them otherwise. And they do, of course. Kinda. But the really exciting thing about this book is the treatment of Murderbot or Sec Unit. Because up until now, Sec Unit has been kind of a Deus Ex Machina. It comes in, it huffs and it puffs, it's bored, it doesn't like humans, it doesn't like planets, but it always gets the job done. Now, in System Collapse, in number 7, we've got a situation where the previous encounter with the Agribot spider has left it essentially somewhat mentally damaged. You could say PTSD even. And as a consequence, it isn't functioning as well all the time, as reliably. It is concerned about that. Art is concerned about it. Its favourite humans, Rafik? Oh dear, I've forgotten its favourite human's name. Look, its favourite human. All of its humans are concerned about that. And in this one also we have constant references. We've had them a bit in the past, but here they're constant references to Bharadwaj, Sec Unit's psychologist, analyst. So we've got a lot more depth to the actual character in that they no longer can do everything. I thoroughly enjoyed all 7 of the Murderbot Diaries that I've read. I will reread them. I'm looking forward to re-listening to them. I do really want to read Platform Decay, that's the number 8. Now this is the point where I should mention that if you go online, and the other people who are familiar with the Murderbot Diaries are probably grumbling about this already, there's a lot of decimal points. There's a book called Compulsory, which is less than number 1. It's 0.5. And there's book 2.5, which happens in between of 2 and 3. Surprise, surprise. And there's a 4.5. There's all these points. I have always rather despised backwriting stories by putting decimals in front of a book. If it's number 1, it is number 1. That's what 1 means. 0.5, 0.25, 0.001. Those aren't numbers for books. This might not be a hill I will die on, however. If ever a series could convince me to go and backread things that never happened in the first place, but they've since been written about, Martha Wells will do that with her Murderbot Diaries, which are excellent. If you, like me, have all the doubts in the world that any series that has been so adulated by all the internets could possibly be good, I was wrong. You might well be wrong too. And if you want to read good books, and you like anything modern science fiction-y, I would say that you probably can't do better than Martha Wells' Murderbot Diaries. I might even go on and find more Martha Wells. Have you even heard of any of these books? Great books. I do recommend. Look forward to number 8. But if you don't want to read this, you know what you should do. You should go out there and you should find that book that you think is a good book, and you should read good books.